Hello everyone, this is Mr. Speak and I'm going to be doing my review on the Iron Man Armored Adventures Titanium versus Iron. Again, sorry for so long, it's taking so long for these videos, but weather is taking a turn for the worse and I've been kind of busy, dealing with it, preparing for it, as well as some other things, so I haven't had the chance to do much of my videos and updates. I haven't missed too much, thankfully, but admittedly, I don't have all the time in the world to do these vids. So, sorry for taking so long with it if you've been kind of expecting it. Otherwise, here I go. Anyway, a quick summary of the episode itself. Starts off Hammer's doing this big presentation on his project Titanium. However, unexpected Iron Man has come and is hacking into his systems using his stealth armor. For the most part, Iron Man ruins kind of the presentation. However, he's found out and he has to escape. He intends to go back, of course. Hammer, of course, is upset, and he plans to use Project Titanium to teach Iron Man a lesson because Iron Man only deleted half of his specs from the Hammer computer systems, usage systems on his arrival. So, yeah, he knows he's going to return. In any case, Tony also plans to go back. We have a little scare moment where Hammer is saying like, okay, I know your secret. So on the little confrontation between him and Hammer, it turns out Hammer thought Tony's secret was he was secretly doing some work for Stark International or Stark Industries. I forget which. I'm getting it confused all the time. In any case, he thought he was doing work for Stark International, which I don't know the truth of that statement, but Tony's exceptionally relieved. He tells Hammer to shove it, and he decides to go back along with this time with War Machine to deal with the unexpected resistance that he faced last time. However, this time when he goes in to hack the systems, he has the pleasant pleasure, so to speak, of meeting Project Titanium, aka Titanium Man. Now, one quick note about Titanium Man. Normally Titanium Man has been held up to be basically, an Iron Man duplicate aside from, a few minor look differences here and there, but basically he was Iron Man with the exception that he was made of titanium and he had like a different power source. Like in some incarnations he was powered by nuclear energy. We don't know what exactly he's powered on in this series, but it looks like it could be nuclear energy. However, I think Hammer is a bit more advanced to rely on that kind of thing. Anyway, definitely does not look like Iron Man in the least. He's somewhat Iron Man influences, but he's not Iron Man. Anyway, he's a lot taller and he's kind of like this green tint all over this armor coming from his system. Anyway, what comes next is basically a curbstone fight. It's an entirely one-sided battle for the most part. I mean, Tony can't do a thing to him. He's trying to run away, and Hammer's got like all kind of stuff to mess with his armor. And one War Machine comes in to intervene, but even he gets taken down by like one of the weapons that is not on the Iron Man armor, namely his energy siphon. So he siphons off War Machine's battery, and they end up having to run away. And many times it's just very dangerous because War Machine almost bites the bucket because he gets dropped from a massive height, and Tony's similar. He's been drained for the most part as well, and he's running out of power. Meanwhile, Pepper has been on a date with Happy, and more on their relationship later. Their relationship and Tony's relationship with Pepper later. But in any case, she hears Tony calls her, and she hears he's having difficulty with the little hammer droid, so his little nickname for it. Anyway, she goes back to the armory. She heads back to the armory. Anyway, we finally see Iron Man's stealth armor to run out of power, and Hammer comes quickly along and crushes the living daylights out of Iron Man. No, seriously, Iron Man, he does crush the stealth armor, but Tony had already ejected by that point. He tries to go out and kill Tony. It's not implied, whether or not he saw Tony or knows that he's Iron Man at this point, because it's the visor or whatever you want to call it he uses you can't explicitly tell that it's Tony. Those who know it's Tony could easily see it's him, but I don't know if he's caught on. Plus, a little unique interesting fact here, War Machine at this point is unconscious, he got unconscious when he first encountered Titanium Man in Hammer Multinational. But when Tony was kind of like panicking over War Machine armor being siphoned off, and and Rhodey kind of being on the suffering end of that little stunt, he actually exclaims Rhodey's name. I don't know if Hammer was paying attention or if he has that on video or whatnot, but in any case, Tony's identity might have been found out. We don't know yet. In any case, he tries to hunt down Tony. By this point, War Machine has woken up. Tony used a little bit of juice left in the stealth armor to give his armor a reboot so it could use a backup generator. And by this point, they have a little duking out. Rhodey's a little bit more wary because Iron Man was easily taken down and he was easily taken down, so he's a little bit more wary. They kind of have still a one-sided battle, but Rhodey's not as badly beaten as he was before. By this point, Pepper's gotten back to the armor. He has sent the Mark II armor to Tony so he can get in. And he and War Machine tag team against Titanium Man. For the most part, it still doesn't do much. However, Tony reflects one of Titanium Man's little devices against him, and it kind of slows him down for a little while, enough for them to double team him with the repulsors and cause his armor to burn. Now, one thing unique about it is that the Project Titanium, aka Titanium Man, was unfinished, so it's still, the vibranium and the titanium weren't melded yet, so it wasn't the invincible metal that Hammer intended it to be. And he's obviously suffering for it. The armor starts to burn, and because it's titanium, it doesn't stop burning. So Hammer ends up having to run. He runs all the way back to Hammer Multinational, and he complains now because he had rescheduled the little weapons demonstration to S.H.I.E.L.D. that was interrupted earlier in the episode for the next day, and he has nothing he can show them now. He takes his anger out on Mr. Fix in a notable moment of, a little bit of cartoon, brutality, I suppose you could say. And he kills him using the aforementioned nanovirus that he infected Mr. Fix with a few episodes earlier. And he literally dies. However, technically not, because what happens here is that he fully intended to, but when that happens, he reveals he had this little device placed on Mr. Fix, and it uploaded his brain to the little device, which in turn he used to upload his brain onto the computer system. So technically Mr. Fix is still alive, however now he's inside a Hammer Multinational's system, so to speak, and he's going to apparently be forced to work and perfect Project Titanium. Unfortunately for Fix, as he is not happy about this at all. So pretty violent, another one of the darker moments from the series. Anyway, we see Tony again. He's going to build, I guess, like a Mark II version of the stealth armor, built with more weapons and better systems, because of the little skirmish he had with Titanium Man today, and he fully expects the Titanium Man to come back for the most part. What's going to happen next episode, we're not entirely certain. Overall, it was a pretty good episode. Again, another one of the darker moments for the series, in that we see Tony again using another heavy-handed, questionable moment. First was kind of with the negator packs, taking out the guardsmen. That was kind of questionable in its own right. And this moment, he's actually hacking in a Hammer Multinational to get rid of his specs. Technically, Hammer did not break any laws by doing that, so he could easily... legally he's crossed the line, and if Hammer has like footage of that, or had caught him doing that, well, caught him doing that in turn, turn him into the law officials, he could get Iron Man classified as a criminal. Of course, he probably won't do that because he wants his own personal revenge against Iron Man. And in any case, this is one of the more heavy-handed tactics that Tony's used in the series. Another thing that's notable about it is that, unlike the negator packs, which were frowned upon by Rhodey and Pepper, I don't think they entirely agree with what he's doing, as they do mention Tony did not patent his armor, but at the same time, they're more inclined to go along with it because I think they recognize that Hammer could potentially do some great harm. Again, if you hear like rain or something in the background, sorry, I'm not doing this at the best of times. We're having some pretty rough weather pass through our area at this point, but I wanted to get on this video online. If not, then great. Anyway, a notable dark moment. Another notable moment that's kind of like side plot-ish or side development-ish is the Pepper Happy relationship. Again, I'm a Tony Pepper supporter. At the same time, it's still not clear at this point whether or not she's starting to take an honest-to-goodness interest in Happy. She looks kind of conflicted, and again, we get hints that, you know, she's mainly doing this to get back at Tony for dating Whitney. But, you know, there are some moments where she does look genuine in trying to give her all to this relationship. So, you know, it's really questionable at that stage. How it's going to work out, I'm not entirely sure. But, yeah, we'll wait and see. In any case, it should be some interesting development. As for what's coming next, well, we already saw a glimpse of Project Titanium, and Tony, as well as War Machine, almost bit the bullet. Hammer, this is actually one incarnation of Hammer that he's doing his job as the villain pretty well. In any other incarnation, when dealing with the more advanced side of technology, he's been showed as somewhat of an incompetent. For anybody who's ever seen Iron Man 2, as we see when he tries to recreate the Iron Man armor, he fails pretty spectacularly, and it ends up with a guy, you know, twisting his spine really badly. Don't worry, he lives though. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But anyway, this is a more competent version of Hammer, in that Titanium Man, for the most part, it was a one-sided battle all the way through until the very end, where he got one of his own weapons turned on him. So, yeah, Hammer's played up to be a pretty interesting villain in this series. So hopefully we'll see more acts of, you know, serious villainy, and hopefully we see more interesting moments with Hammer. However, we should not forget that Stain is also working on a little project because of the specs he's acquired as well. So it should be interesting when that comes to fruition. In any case, I think I'll stop my review right here. Overall, I'd say out of 10, the episode gets a 9. And still kind of blocky, and I shouldn't say blocky, but kind of I don't know what the word is for it in terms of the actual fight, but still overall an interesting episode. Anyway, I'm going to be signing off here. You know, rate, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Sorry, I've been kind of slow. I'll try to keep up with the videos in the future, as well as I'm going to be branching out into other topics besides Iron Man Armored Adventures, so you might want to subscribe to hear what I have to say on other things as well. Anyway, this has been Mr. Speak, signing off.